Right, let's get more analysis. Political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley joins us to expand on this. Dr. McKinley, a very good evening to you. We just listened there to Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast saying we should be careful not to overplay the way that things are because the economic spin-offs have only been felt by a very selected few. What is your take on what we're seeing?
Well, the first thing is I think most South Africans are going to welcome any improvement in home affairs. The situation of home affairs has been desperate for a long time. I think irrespective of whether or not it's the visa backlog or whether or not it's just basically issuing temporary orders that can, while things are getting a little bit more in order. I mean, these are, welcome signs, but it shows you how far we've gone down that road, how bad things were, that we can get quite excited or people can actually try to celebrate something that is just clearing a backlog, which should never have happened in the first place, obviously. But I think it's not about whether or not we over-celebrate or overreact in some ways. I think it's just about saying that if there's an indication that, in this case, a state-owned enterprise, not a state-owned enterprise, but a state department, a public department that services can change itself, then all the better.
Because we know that the Home Affairs Department has been crippled by years of corruption. In fact, we heard the minister saying syndicates and mafia have infiltrated every sector of home affairs and absolutely no exception to that. When it comes to 100 days, having this backlog cleared in that space of time, is it indicative of an improvement perhaps? Because, it's a small joy, as you say, but it is impactful.
Yeah, I think it's got to be welcomed, obviously. You don't want to poo-poo something that's progress, and so you say welcome it. But in the same breath, to basically say that this is about public service and public administration across the board. So let's get it back to at least where these departments are functioning properly. Home Affairs has got a lot of other things to do, a long ways to go, as do many other departments. But I think in the context of this, it's about who gets service. I think the point is apropos, is that if the people who are, for example, from the rural areas and those that have been waiting and younger people and those that have not had access to home affairs services and have found it very hard, if it can be made more accessible, not just processing a backlog, but if people can begin to access these rights and access these basic public services, then that's good, irrespective of who's running the show. And I don't think we should get caught up in the political ideological debate here. It's just saying let's concentrate on some practical things and let's fix those things as much as is possible. We've got many things to fix.
And with this, we also heard Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast speaking about the ripple effect and how much pressure this will now begin to put on the others to sort of get their ducks in a row when it comes to ensuring that there is a delivery of services. How impactful do you think this move will be when it comes to the other departments?
Well, I think I said at the beginning when the GNU formed, or the coalition government, whatever you want to call it, that one of the potential spin-offs, positive spin-offs, would be there would be competition amongst departments and different political parties to impress them, to show that they could do a job. And the fact of the matter is when the public service wants to do something, they can do it. We've seen this in many cases. They can pull off very sophisticated, very long-term projects if the will is there and if the organization is there. So that's the main thing, is to say that if other departments are going to say, well, we don't want to be shown up in this case and we don't want to lose our job, all the better. So I think in the case there are criticisms to be made of the GNU. There are a lot of things that are wrong, but when we see progress, I think in this case we must embrace that. Well, let's expand that space.
Yeah, we just perhaps veering off slightly. Today we looked at President Cyril Ramaphosa, for one, in Russia, and of course some of the remarks he had to make there, talking about his relations with Russia, South Africa's relations with Russia, and how is that bold statement is almost contradictory when it comes to what the DA has to say about relations with Russia.
No surprise. We all know that the DA and the ANC have very, very different particular on certain aspects of different foreign policy stances. Yeah. Some they agree on, others they don't. Clearly, in this case, the Russian one, the Israel, Gaza, Palestine issue, again, is another one. and there are others. So I don't think that this should be any surprise. And we know that in foreign policy, there's also larger geopolitical games being played, or at least maneuvers, should we say, that go beyond South Africa, that are about positioning BRICS and trying to, and there's trade relationships and business relationships involved and everything else. So I think we should expect the argy-bargy, the criticism, everything else, whether or not I think it's going to get quite old for us to continue to speculate every time there's a disagreement in the GNU that is going to break up. I think we should come to expect that as almost normal.
That's quite an important point, more so as we have looked at the impact of the GNU, as we look at the markets, how that reaction has been, and how the president and other ministers have gone across the country, speaking about, across the world, pardon me, I mean the US, the UK, and using the GNU formation as almost a backing to say that, you know, we are stable, we are ready for business, we are open for any opportunities. That itself, you know, a show of confidence and perhaps a little less worrying, do you think, about whether or not the GNU will see the end of its term or not?
Well, I think the GNU is representing particular kinds of interests at the moment and is championing those interests. The issue of whether it can survive for 5 years is the degree to which it can broaden that perspective, and it begins to represent other South Africans, not just business, not just the middle class, not just those that have capital, not just those that are going to run and invest in the economy, but those who are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, who are the 42% expanded unemployed, and all of those who are struggling just to survive. If the GNU ignores that, which there's many cases their macroeconomic policy indicates and their austerity politics indicates that they haven't yet grasped this nettle. If they don't grasp that nettle of inequality and poverty, then I doubt they will survive. And I think that's the crucial point. We should expect to champion the particular kinds of class interests they are, but that's not going to do it in the long term.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley.